what is happening is at Ihumātao is having an impact on our global Indigenous communities. And whatever comes of this movement, I hope it's so long as it supports the movement to uphold Indigenous rights.
E wanga tawi ai aka ata mohi o tia e Pania Newton ka noho koia hei roia a tōna wā. E rua takau mārima ngā tawi ai ana ka whakatutuki e ia he wawata. Ara kia whakakahore ngia ngā mahi rūri I te whenua I pātata atu ki tōna papatipu. A katahuri tōna ao. Neia tāna kōrero. Pania Newton, Indigenous 100. Pania, tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe.
Nau mai ki te rau o take, nau mai ki tēnei hōtaka. E nui ana roto, kua tā mai koe ki te kōrero kia mātou. Nō reira nau mai.
Oh, ngā mihi.
What were you doing before you came here today?
Well, I actually snuck away from the wharepaku duties this morning.
You were doing the wharepaku duties?
Yeah, so every morning I'm tasked with the responsibility to open up the marae toilets and allow our campers to come through and have a horoi, and then I'm meant to go back and close the toilets and also clean them. So I've snuck away this morning.
Why is the I won't use rangatira, but the leader rostered on wharepaku duties?
I guess I wouldn't have it any other way. It keeps, to be a leader, you got to lead from the front and the back. Also, it keeps me humble, and it's actually my time away from everybody else. It's just me and the toilet brush and me and the broom and the mop, and it's probably one of the only times during the day that I get to be by myself.
Love it. I love that. And what will you be doing when you go back?
When I go back, there'll probably be a few pōwhiri, but I'll probably jump on the kitchen duties. I'll probably jump on the front lines as well, give a bit of kōrero, take a hikoi, and I've got a strategy hui at 1 o'clock.
Okay, we'll come to the strategy hui, but the kitchen duties, what's your speciality?
Probably drying the dishes and giving out the plates with a smile and, good afternoon, a good morning, ngā mihi, how are you? Just checking in with everybody, which is important.
Are you on dishes duty because they don't let you near the cooking?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Then my whānau, I burnt popcorn when I was 12 years old, inside the microwave, and so they don't really let me near the pots or the oven.
It's a pretty interesting experience to burn popcorn in a microwave.
I know.
Well done.
I know. And it was microwave popcorn as well. They've never let me live it down.
You know what I love about whānau? They never forget stuff like that. They never forget it.
Even though it's like 12 years on now, more, they still won't let me live that moment down.
And so is that pretty much every day for you? Is waking up in the morning, doing your wharepaku duties, going away doing things like this, coming back, getting in the wharekai, doing dishes?
Yeah, well, the wharepaku are pretty constant, but there might be some other things that I do throughout the day, such as making planter boxes, harvesting kai from our planters, planting, spending time with our kaumātua and our kuia, hearing kōrero, giving kōrero. Yeah, it's all pretty much different.
Because we have this thing that you're the boss there, right?
Yeah, I think that's a misconception.
Is it?
Yeah. And that's something that I want to debunk, is just because I might be the face of the kaupapa, it doesn't necessarily mean I make all the decisions. I take part in what the decisions might be, but actually 5 generations of our whānau from our marae are actually making the decisions for our whenua.
Wow. Who are the decision makers then? Tell me about them.
Our kaumātua and our kuia, our pakeke, even my nieces and nephews have an opportunity to contribute to the decision making. So it's an intergenerational thing. We don't just have one leader. We're all leaders because we're all leading our own lives.
Wow. So tell me about the process then of decision making.
So if somebody has an idea, they'll put it to the whānau hui in the evenings, and if the whānau agrees, then we will vote, and usually we try to reach a consensus. There's only been 1 or 2 times where we've had to do a majority rules.
Wow.
And those are usually things around, should we take a hikoi around the whenua? And one of my cousins will be like, it's too cold. But yeah.
So has that always been a part of your whānau in terms of decisions as a whānau always goes to that consensus-based decision-making process where people contribute?
Not necessarily, but I think it's something that my cousins and I have been pushing, and it's something that we've always used throughout our decision-making processes throughout this whole campaign. So people have said it's a new form of Māori leadership, but I says, no, it's a traditional form of leadership that we are only reclaiming.
And what are the strengths and weaknesses of that process in your view?
There's these notions around decolonisation, and people are uncomfortable with the collective decision-making. It takes longer as well, but for us, as long as the majority of the whānau are consulted with and have an opportunity to have a say on matters that affect them, we are more comfortable moving forward as a whānau when decisions are made collectively.
Wow, I love that. Love it. Tell me about your whānau. Let's start with your mum and dad, or mātua. Ko wai o mātua?
So, my dad likes to go by many names, but he was known as Wally Boy, but he would say his name is Te Pare Raware, Peter, Wally, Henry, George, Oti, and my mama's name is Michelle Newton.
What were they like when you were growing up?
Oh, they were very loving and supporting parents. They went through a lot of struggles. My dad was a product of a failed colonial system. He was dragged around to different boys' homes. For the majority of my life, my father was actually in prison. And so my mum was a solo parent for most of our lives, but whenever my dad was around, he was staunch to te ao Māori, tikanga Māori, and he dragged us around to all sorts of different paukai, all sorts of different protests, and because of him, I believe I have a lot of, that's why I feel so connected to my ao Māori and to my values.
What was it like for you growing up with, a dad in prison and all that comes with that? For a young Māori woman, child growing up, there's some pejorative things people say about kids whose fathers are in prison. What was it like for you?
Absolutely. It was interesting, but it was normal for us. We went through ups and downs, as most families do, but it's sad to think that some of my fondest memories as a child were spent at Mount Eden prison, because we would visit my dad there and he was always happy and chirpy, and we would always get chocolate biscuits and Milo, which were luxuries that we never enjoyed at home. When I was growing up, I had a lot of stereotypes placed upon me and a lot of pressures. Many people would have thought I would have become pregnant at a young age, or would have been affiliated to gangs and been involved with drugs. But because of those stereotypes, I was always passionate about overcoming those.
Wow. Are these things that you and your dad or you and your mum would talk about? Or?
Yeah, well, mostly me and my siblings. We would always talk about how we would change the circumstances for our tamariki and our mokopuna to give them a better life than what we had. I mean, my parents did the best that they could do with what they had, and I'm very grateful for my upbringing. But me and my siblings would often sit around and say, we would never do this, and we'll take this learning and we might do this differently when we get older. And I guess that's why I went on to study law, and my brother's a police officer, and my sister's studying to be a midwife, and my other 2 sisters are still discovering where they might fit within their ao huri.
Are you the eldest?
I'm the second youngest.
Second youngest, wow. Okay, and what was life like for your mother then, being, you used the word, a solo mum?
It was tough. Domestic violence was trife in our household. I remember moving around a lot, but for us, our tūranga waiwai was at Ihumātao because that's where our grandmother's homestead was. That's where we always went to in the weekends and in the school holidays, and that was our happy place. And so, I guess it was pretty tough for our mum. But she was strong, and she's Ngāpuhi through and through. She's a very quiet woman, very observant.
Sorry, you said she's Ngāpuhi?
Yes.
She's a quiet woman.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'll just take a note.
I know. But
Ngāpuhi, quiet woman.
But I guess in that respect, she's staunch, and she knows who she is, and she's opinionated, but in her very quiet, humble way. Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned your grandmother, and with reference to Ihumātao. Tell me about your grandmother and your experiences with your grandmother.
Yeah, it's really interesting because she was a stern lady growing up, but over the years she's become very, very soft, and a lot of my whānau would mock me and say I'm very much like her. She's in her 70s now, and she's still working. She's supposed to be retired, but she works at the meatworks, and she does the till, and she cuts meat, and she serves people, and I take a lot of my learnings away from her.
What do you remember most? What's some of the experiences you had with her that stick with you now, that you still remember now?
Getting kicked out of the house when we were little.
Really?
Yeah.
Out of her house?
Yeah, being told that we should be playing outside, that, children should be enjoying the outdoors, and that to be respectful to our kaumātua and our pakeke and our kuia, to be patient and to be kind, though she was stern. So I guess I'm the auntie who's really good at giving the tohu, but also I'm the one that all the nieces and nephews come running to when they're crying or when they're hurt or when they've been told off.
And that comes from your grandmother?
Yeah, and then over the years she's very soft and she listens a lot, and she would give the clothes off her back for anybody. So, yeah.
What were you like as a child?
I talked a lot. Yeah, I was labelled Pania the Yap because I asked a lot of questions, and
About what?
About life. I was curious. My koro also played a huge role in my life around my intellect. He played a lot of Chinese checkers, chess and drafts with me as a child. He taught me about saving money. He would barter with me. He would pick my kutus and he would sell them to me for 50 cents. We would sit and watch a lot of rugby as well, and he too is a very kind man.
You used to sit around and watch rugby?
Yeah.
Any team in particular?
He was a huge fan of the Bulldogs, and so too was my dad, and he liked Canterbury as well.
Okay.
My dad is well known for having this big bulldog tattoo on his arm.
Staunch, that's staunch to the game.
Yeah, but he's a jabba jaws as well.
Wow. Where did that inquisitive mind come from? Watching
Mostly,
your koro playing checkers.
Yeah, mostly my koro, and he was a gardener as well. He won all sorts of awards on the North Shore for having these extravagant gardens. We would pick a lot of his strawberries from his garden patch, and he would be featured in local newspapers about his mara and how he took care of the kaumātua flats at Awataha Marae. And so I get my connection to Papa Tuanuku from him, and also the inquisitive mind.
Did you have your own garden when you were a child?
No, he would never allow me to. He'd always get me to weed his. Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay. So the reason why I'm interested is because I think there's a lot here about what makes you what you are today. And you said that people refer to you as Pania Yap. Is that what your grandparents called you as well? What would they say you were like as a child?
I would say I was Pania the Yap because I always was walking around singing. My uncles would pay me $2 to sing them a waiata. Wow. And my Uncle Harry used to go around and bless a lot of whare, and so I'd go along with him and sing his waiata tautoko. Same too with my koro. They would cart me all around to Kawhia and across Waikato. We'd play a lot of games along the way. And I suppose that's why I'm very different to my siblings. But they wouldn't really describe me as being Pania, the yap now, because I'm much more quieter, much more observant, and more of a tohu than I was before.
I was going to say Pania the tohu.
Yeah.
So, given your interesting home life, koro, gardening and that kind of thing, what was school like for you?
Yeah, school was like my safe haven. It was my escape from my home realities. So I'd often try and go home with a lot of my friends' parents. I need to escape my own, and it was tough being the second youngest out of 5 children. My sister was the spoiled one, and my brother was the only boy, and so I was in between them two, and I was supposed to be a boy when I was born, and so any opportunity to escape home was taken up quick. So a lot of my childhood friends would remember me always being around at their homes. Yeah.
What about school itself? I mean, how did you find school work?
Yeah, when I was at Kura Kaupapa, it was very interesting. I was getting involved with everything. But then through intermediate and college, I started to act out a little bit. And I think that was mostly due to my circumstances. My mum had left my dad when I was 12, and she had found a new partner. And we were adjusting to the new home life, and I was acting out a little bit, wagging school and getting involved with not so good things, but education was always very important to me. And my parents, although they didn't push me to take up education formally, they were always huge on education. Yeah.
Did you find it easy? Work itself, the curriculum?
Not really, because I learned how to read English when I was 11, and I was taught by my younger auntie, who was 9 at the time. And I was in and out of Māori and English schools, so my educational schooling was quite confusing, but I guess it helped me in terms of how to adjust to different environments. Yeah.
Which kura kaupapa were you at again?
Te kura kaupapa Māori o Te Raki Pai Whenua.
Te Raki Pai Whenua, yeah. Arara Wataha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at the age of 9, when I was at Raki Pai, I wrote in a time capsule what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I first wrote down that I wanted to become a firefighter, and my brother was like, what a joke, you're too short. And then I was like, he was like, choose something more realistic, you want to make a difference. And I sat there and thought about it, and I looked to my circumstances and I said, you know what, I'm sick of living in poverty, and I'm sick of feeling marginalised. I want to make a real difference. And the way that I thought I could at that time was to change laws. And so I wrote down in the time capsule that I wanted to become a lawyer when I grew up.
Wow, that's really interesting. How old were you then?
I was 9.
9. That at 9 years old, you're thinking in that way about marginalisation, the impacts of societal attitudes and institutions, and the impact they were having on you as a 9-year-old child to think about being a lawyer at that time.
Yeah.
Where do you think that came from? What inspired that, or what motivated that?
I guess I started to compare my own life to other school mates' lives, and it then became obvious to me that it wasn't normal going in and out of Mount Eden prison every weekend. It wasn't normal, maybe sacrificing 1 or 2 meals a day, or it wasn't normal to be moving around the way that we did, even though my mum was doing the best that she could, and she is such a strong lady. But I guess it just dawned on me that I wanted something better, and that my siblings and I deserved something better, just like those other kids at Kura did.
What was the response you got from your brother, who said you were too short to be a firefighter, and other people who knew, that you probably spoke to at the time, that you said you wanted to be a lawyer? What were they thinking when you said that?
Well, I didn't actually tell my brother that I changed my goal, but I told my teachers, and I think there's even some footage of me when I was younger saying how I wanted to become a lawyer when I grew up. And because they knew that, I guess they supported me in my aspirations and would wrap around any support they could to help me achieve that goal.
Wow. You said that you were also getting into some not so good things through high school. Do you mind me asking what those were? I know you said you wagged, but you also said and other.
Yeah, well, I tried to start up my own little gang when I was at Orewa College. And so I had my own mates who would wag school and smoke cigarettes, and I wasn't really into smoking cigarettes myself, but my friends were, and, you know, going out on the weekends and going to parties and things like that.
And that was an influence of the environment you were in at the time?
Yeah, I guess I might have been looking for attention from my own parents at the time, but I was, influenced by my friends, but also influencing them. Yeah, because I don't want to put the blame on any one person, but yeah, I just take it on the chin as just being a phase that I went through in my life, yeah.
Well, we can talk about this now, it's okay, because you are where you are now,
I know.
and this is really interesting, and I'll get to the point why that's really interesting later on, but did you ever have a name for the gang? Wasn't the Crazy Horses? Or?
No, we just wore a lot of red clothes. I can't remember if we had a name, but I do have a lot of photos of when I was 13 years old, and we used to roam around malls and schools wearing a lot of boisterous clothes and, you know, standing over other students and things like that. Yeah,
Really? What was
a lot of people would think, Pania, really? You were like that? And I'm like, I know. I don't know what I was doing.
Remember what people were saying at the time about that kind of behaviour you were undertaking?
No, and my parents didn't know about it.
Oh, okay.
It was not something that they were discouraging either. They just didn't really know about it. My mum would get angry about me wagging school, but my siblings were acting out way more than I was. So I guess I was just trying to compete with them. Like my sister had a baby when she was very young, and my other sister was doing not so good things as well. And my brother was at Te Aute College, and my sister was at St. Joe's. And yeah, my parents were just a bit distracted. Yeah.
Okay. And I think Tāwhiri Mātea is having a laugh now. I can hear the rain hitting the
I
roof.
know, it's saying stop, Pania. Your family's not going to like that.
So what broke that kind of behaviour, you know, the gang thing and trying to get parents' attention? Did that stop pretty soon after that, or was it?
Absolutely, it was pretty quick, smart. My mum noticed that I was acting out, and then she sent me to St. Joseph's Māori Girls Catholic Boarding School. But she still knew
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I had.
Write that down. I didn't know.
She knew I had a passion for education.
Wow.
Yeah, and I guess for her, I was her only hope.
What? Really?
Yeah.
What was St. Joe's like for you? Because as you know, there's a principal there that's pretty tough.
Yeah.
Miss Kingy?
Yeah.
What was it like when you first went there?
I loved it.
Really?
I loved the whole lifestyle.
Right from the get-go?
Right from the get-go, but because I had this tough attitude, and some of the other girls that I was hanging around with wouldn't admit that they enjoyed it as well, or they actually didn't enjoy it. That kind of rubbed off onto me, and I was just acting on that as well. But I regret leaving St. Joe's actually. Yeah, but it was just, I was stubborn, and I spent 1 year there, and I thought that was enough for me. But yeah, looking back, I just say, why did I do that? You know, I missed so many great opportunities, and it was there that solidified for me what my path was going to be.
Really?
Yeah.
How old were you then?
I was 13, 14.
Wow. And do you remember Miss Kingy?
Yes.
What was she
very
like
much.
with you?
We had a few run-ins. Yeah. I got into a fight at St. Joe's.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
it's hard to
Pania.
believe. I'm so small, yeah. Some of my friends who might listen to this will remember that incident. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I got into a bit of trouble as well. I snuck alcohol in. Yeah. So Miss Kingy will remember that quite fondly. So I was surprised to ask to contribute to the 150th Jubilee book.
So let's take you from St. Joe's then. You come out of St. Joe's. You end up where?
I ended up moving to Aussie, to study OP legal studies in Queensland. I went to Curwin State High School, and at the time my brother was playing in the Toyota Cup for the Cowboys.
What was that like going from, because St. Joe's is a pretty isolated school in Taradale, 25 Aussie Road if I'm correct, going to Queensland, completely different set of circumstances.
Yeah.
How did you adjust?
It was a huge cultural shock. And the number of students that was going to that school as well. So but it was a huge eye-opener for me. And I learnt a lot about the Indigenous culture in Australia. I learnt about the Torres Strait Island people. Many of my friends were, Aboriginal.
Was it there that solidified the want, the desire to follow the legal route, to go into law?
That and to follow the route of justice, because I knew some of my friends had experienced some horrific incidences whereby themselves or some of their friends were victims of racist attacks. Some of them were targeted, and just some of the incidences that happened there. It was hardly ever we'd walk through a whole road without having racial slanders, said against them.
So I'll be honest with you, this is interesting for me because there's a lot of my relations with Māori who go to Australia, and actually sometimes they're not so great as well themselves in the way in which they relate with the Indigenous communities in Australia. In fact, some of them can be as racist as some white Australians in the way that they view the Aboriginal community. What was their view of you, young Māori girl coming from St. Joe's to Queensland, and interacting and relating with these Indigenous young Aboriginal girls in Australia?
Yeah. Well, I think we got on straight away because we share similar values, and that's what connects a lot of global Indigenous communities, is these values around whānau and these values around our connection to the environment.
Yeah. I can hear Tāwhiri Mātea again, but that's okay. I think he's crying now because he can hear what you're saying in Queensland. So you go to, how long do you spend in Queensland?
About a year.
About a year. And then you come back to Aotearoa?
Yeah, I was still acting out a little bit, but we come back to Aotearoa, and then I asked my auntie to enrol me at Te Kura Māori o Ngā Tapuai.
And is that where life changes for you a bit? Does the acting out stop a little bit there?
Yeah.
What changed
totally.
that?
It was, for me, because my mum encouraged me to join a course, and then I went to this course and I was thinking, this is good for me. I'm not at school. But whilst at that course, I felt like I wasn't in my comfort zone. I wasn't being challenged intellectually. Many people there didn't share similar goals as I did, and I felt like I wasn't fulfilling my obligation to that 9-year-old self who said that she would become a lawyer when she grew up. So I finished my 6-month course, and I sneakily asked my auntie if she could enrol me at Te Kura Māori o Ngā Tapuai, and she did.
Who were the biggest influences that helped change your course in life that stops that acting out while you're at Ngā Tapuai?
My auntie Raywin, she would always be this passive supporter, and she never would growl me. She would just say, I'm disappointed about this, and then that would put the burden on me, like, I've disappointed my auntie, I shouldn't do that, and I need to stick my head into the books and do what's right. And I had my siblings as well reminding me about what my goals were. My friends and my koro would be there in the background too, saying you should do something better for yourself. And
So then you end up at Auckland University, I think it is. You study law.
So Ngā Tapuai in Year 13, they don't really give their tawira any other option but to go to university. Well, at that time
Awesome.
anyway, yeah,
Awesome.
which was amazing because I think 11 of the 13 students in my year 13 class ended up going on to university. So I studied hard at Ngā Tapuwai because I knew I needed to get good grades to go to university, and I knew the only way that I could get to university is through a scholarship. So I managed to get a significant amount of dollars through the scholarships that I received my last year of school. I applied to Auckland Uni and I was accepted.
What was that like? What was the feeling you got when you got accepted to study law at Auckland University?
Oh, it was massive, but it was also nerve-wracking because no one in my whānau had actually gone to university before, so I couldn't really talk to anybody or nobody could really relate to me. The only other cousin that I had at the time had been studying at MIT, and she was doing courses in tourism and catering and things like that. And she was very supportive of me and knew what it took to get your assignments done and get to class on time and things like that. So she told me in my first semester that I should probably move out of home. And so I did that and then studied away from home in the first year, which was really good for me because I was outside of the distractions of our home life, and because of that, and I was able to study hard. I guess I was accepted into the law school at the University of Auckland.
How did you find it, studying law that first year? Because they all say the first year, and I think the last year are the hardest years when you're studying law. How did you find it?
It was tough. I was competing with 1,200 other students, and they were from, collegiate schools and, well-off backgrounds, and so I felt outside of my comfort zone. But I found comfort in, support networks like Ngā Tauira Māori and Te Rākau Ture and the Tuakana program and things like that. And those were the reasons why I chose to go to the University of Auckland, because of those support systems.
And all the while in the back of your mind, are you still thinking about that 9-year-old determination that you did, plus what you wanted to do in the future, contribute back? Absolutely.
I always had that at the back of my mind. I had an obligation to fulfil the dream of that 9-year-old and to also make a difference for my own whānau. And when I was in my second year, I remember seeing attitudes and within my own whānau begin to change. So my sister was inspired to go to university. Wow. My brother went on to do carpentry and also, wanted to keep up and be a police officer. We always had this internal competition going on. But yeah, and I saw that as a positive impact that I was having on my own whānau, which encouraged me to continue to go, even though sometimes I wanted to throw in the towel.
Why did you want to throw in the towel?
Oh, because there was a lot of racism at university.
In the law school?
Yeah. And I felt like I was the token Māori. Whenever we had case law that was, focused on Māori issues, I would always be asked for an opinion, or people would be reluctant to join my discussion groups because I was Māori, and because of all the comments that would be made against Māori throughout our lectures and our tutorials.
By other students or by faculty? Or?
By students mostly, and also because a lot of students presume that you were under some sort of special admission scheme and that you were only there because you had a scholarship and so on.
How did you deal with that?
I found courage and resilience through the support networks such as Ngā Tauira Māori and the Tuakana program. And my dad was always staunch, saying, "It's all right, Papa, just keep going, never mind what they say," even though he's doing a haka in the background after I leave, because he's angry, but he was always encouraging.
University life is also well known as having other things about university life that can be interesting and appealing to students? Were you one of those students that was always industrious and diligent and focused just on study, or were you also a student that participated in some of the other extracurricular activity?
Yeah, it was really interesting when I look at the evolution of my time at university. I was very studious in my first couple of years. I won a few awards for top student, and I was going for those counsellor, student body counsellor positions and so on. But then towards the end of my degree, I was hardly ever at class.
Really?
Partying a lot. And,
really?
Yeah, because I missed out on a lot of that in my earlier years, and a lot of my friends were studying bachelor degrees, and so they were starting to leave uni at that time, and I was, so I was trying to compensate for that time that was lost. But yeah, I really enjoyed university. I enjoyed the parties. I wasn't much of a drinker myself. I was more the sober driver or the looker after, but I loved dressing up and going to parties and doing all sorts of crazy things and meeting new people. And but whilst I was doing that, I was also, playing for the law school basketball team and the netball team and doing touch and tag and things like that. And I was also getting involved with some student politics.
Look, no offence,
groups.
but you playing for the law school basketball team when your brother said you were too short to be a firefighter, it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Were they much chop or?
Oh man, those girls were guns in
Really?
the team. Yeah,
Oh,
we
good
took
on
it out in our first year. It was pretty good. It was some good times. We took netball and basketball out in the first year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you graduate
Yes.
from law school. What's the plan when you graduate?
Oh, I was gunning on establishing a career in law, and I had hopes of becoming a judge one day.
Why?
Because I wanted to make a difference at that level in terms of influencing laws, because it was the laws that were oppressing my family and our people, and it was because of the laws why I experienced the injustice and the marginalisation and impoverishment that I did, endure when I was young.
What was it like for your family, mum, dad, grandparents, siblings, you graduating in law, going to your graduation? I think at the marae, tāne nui arangi, the Māori graduation. What was that like for them?
It was a huge moment for our whānau. I was the first one in my immediate and extended whānau to graduate from university. I don't think my whānau actually comprehended what it meant as well for them, but they were just so proud. And I was just really stoked that I got to take my nieces and nephews through that journey with me. And I was happy to have both of my parents there and for them to see me receive that tohu. At that moment, I think that's what helped change my dad's life.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean change your dad's life?
Yeah, my dad would say he's a freedom fighter. Some would describe him as a nanakia. But he decided to be more involved in his children's lives and his mokopuna's lives, and he started to change his own behaviours.
Oh. What were their expectations of you at that time? Had they charted a course for you?
No, my family don't tend to put a lot of pressure on me, which is amazing. I thought my dad would, he thought that I'd get a nice big house and that he would move into the sleep out and do my lawns and things like that, but that wasn't the case, considering what I'm doing now.
But you had a plan to become a judge, and do you get an internship or something at a law firm after you graduate, or just as you're graduating? So
throughout my time at university, I was interning at different firms, and one of the firms that I was interning at, and I had a relationship with one of the partners there, had offered me a job in Rotorua. Yeah.
Why Rotorua?
Because at the time my partner was working at Rotorua Hospital as a doctor.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was the plan, right? You were going to go there?
Yeah, we were going to start a life in Rotorua. We were going to settle down and we were going to build our careers, and we couldn't think of anywhere better than Rotorua because that's where he was born and raised. And it's a beautiful and humble city.
What did your family think of that, you moving away from Auckland?
Yeah, they weren't really keen on me moving away, but they understood why. And the circumstances back here in Tamaki were still a little bit shaky, and so they wanted me to go and experience the world and get all the oysters and bring them back home when the time came.
Then tell me about what happens that changes that plan. Can you recall the exact moment that happens that causes you to change path?
So in the final year that I was at university, I decided to work at our marae kohanga reo, and I just wanted to give back to the papakainga and give back to my whānau who had done so much for me. So a lot of my nieces and my nephews were going to the kohanga reo, and my uncle asked if I would work there, and I said, absolutely. So I was there teaching reo and tikanga and things about the kingitanga. And in that same year, we discovered that piece of whenua within our papakainga was supposed to become part of the Otuatawa Stonefields Historic Reserve and be public open space had been designated a special housing area. So we were told that there were survey pegs on the land. We went to go and see those, and immediately we investigated. And what we found was that there was a $500 multi-million-dollar housing complex being proposed for our whenua without any consultation. And so my cousin put up a Facebook post and she said, does anybody know about what's going on? And we had heard murmurs, and she said, anyone who's keen to get together, come over to my whare and let's have a yarn. And 6 of us turned up. And during dinner and a long hui, we promised ourselves that we would do everything in our power to oppose this development. And we also promised that we would exhaust every legal means available to us in order to prevent this development from going ahead. And we've pretty much stuck to our guns since.
What's the first action that you take at that time that gives effect to those words that you talked about between the 6 of you?
We first went and sought the blessing of our marae and our pakeke. Mm-hmm. And once we got the blessing, we then formed our own rōpū, and my cousin named us Soul. At first we wanted to be E Tū Te Waiofua, but we managed to get a lot of support from our community. And then my cousin, she likes to play on words, and she's a bit of a I should say kai waiata, rap star. Her partner's a rapper, and so she came up with the name Soul, Save Our Unique Landscape. And the first thing we did was we held a public hui, garnered support, and then we lodged our first treaty claim under urgency.
And you pull the pegs out, don't you? Those survey pegs that were in, you go away and pull them out.
So after I had heard that there were survey pegs up there, I immediately went up there and started pulling them out, and that was before we started our rōpū, before that initial dinner. Oh. Yeah, so I had to go and see it for myself, and I did, and And
you were in Rotorua at the time that this is...
No, I'm still working at the kohanga reo at that time.
So at the time that all this is happening, you're still making plans to go to Rotorua and set up a life there.
Yeah, so my poor darling at the time, I had already asked him if I could stay, and finish my final year so that I could work for our kohanga reo, and he agreed, and he was living in Rotorua. And whilst I was there, the atua, I suppose, had different plans for me. And so after I found those survey pegs and investigated, and then we formed a cousins' rōpū to oppose the development, and we became very committed to the cause. And that when that year came to an end, and I had promised him that I would move to Rotorua. I moved and I finished my professional legal studies in Hamilton. And 1 month into living there, I asked him if I could come back.
How hard was that? Knowing that you had a plan set up, that you were going to, go into a different journey. How hard was it to change?
It was really difficult because we had always discussed what our goals were and what our plans were after university. And just when we got a taste of it and we were finally settling in, I wanted to go home and finish what we started, and I wanted to go home and fulfil my responsibility as a kaitiaki. So I asked him, and then we asked his whānau, and they were okay with that, and I came back, but we made a decision that he would stay down there and I would come back to Tamaki and do the mahi.
What was that like for you, given you had this aspiration of being a judge? And potentially knowing the impacts of that decision you made to come home, that was it subconsciously in your mind or consciously in the back of your mind that you knew, that aspiration was potentially not going to be your path anymore? What was it like for you?
At the time, I don't think I really thought it through. I didn't think it would take this long, but it was a no-brainer. It was very obvious for me that I would sacrifice my career in law and those aspirations for our whenua, because this whenua is our tūranga waiwai. This whenua means so much to us, and it means so much to the history of Tāmaki and Aotearoa. It was a sacrifice that I was happy and willingly to make, because I knew that the mahi would contribute to a better Aotearoa, and the mahi would contribute to the protection of our whenua taurikura.
What did you think would happen when you came back?
I thought I'd come back and would go for at least another year, but that wasn't the case. And the whenua would be protected, but that wasn't the case.
What did your whānau and friends say when you came back? They say, "Girl, you're crazy.
Yeah,
you could have been a judge. You got to change laws."
Yeah.
Is that what they said?
A lot of my friends thought I was nuts. It was hard for them because a lot of them are law graduates as well. Wow. Many of them are doctors now as well. But they were very supportive and have been throughout this whole process. But the greatest support came from my in-laws at the time, who really supported me in that decision. And they supported me throughout the years following that decision as well.
And still do?
Still do to this day, even though me and my partner aren't together anymore.
Does your partner support what you do?
Not too sure. It's hard to tell. But he always sends me supportive messages every now and then, because we co-share our kuri. Yeah.
Is knowing that, because you said the word sacrifice, you haven't regretted anything about that ever since?
No, I sometimes feel sad about it, because, I was in a relationship for 10 years, not only with my partner, but also my partner's whānau. So that was a sacrifice that I had to make. And my own career, that was okay for me. I wasn't fussed about giving that up, because in that moment, all those materialistic goals didn't really mean anything to me anymore, because I went into kaitiaki mode, and I was just like, kaitiakitanga is, one of my core values.
Where does that come from? You said kaitiaki mode, I think you mentioned kaitiaki role earlier, and kaitiakitanga is a core value. Where does that come from?
Probably my dad and my koro, who were big on being good kaitiaki. I'd always see my koro picking up rubbish around the community, and my dad would always remind me of our connection to Papa Tuanuku and Rangi Nui, and would always tell us about our connection to ngā atua. So a lot of that comes from him. So
when you come back, and you said you thought it might be a year, which is interesting, Did you see what you were going to accomplish in that year as manifestation of kaitiakitanga, te tiaki te tai ao, te whakatau I te mana motu hake e rā mea katoa? Was that what underpinned what you were looking to try and achieve in that year?
Yeah, for me it was just about being the best kaitiaki that I could be. And by that I mean being the best protector of our rights, being the best protector of our environment, being the best protectors for our people.
And so was the ultimate goal to ensure that land at Ihumātao, and you used the words earlier about being part of that reserve trust land area. Is that what you thought you were going to be able to achieve in that year?
Yeah, I thought naively that we would be able to protect that whenua and have it bestowed within the protection of the Otuataua Stonefield Historic Reserve. But it dawned on us very quickly that it takes a bit more mahi than just 1 year to work that out.
That aspiration, that goal has not changed?
No, not at all. We started with division of iriro whenua atu me hoki whenua mai, and no compromise.
How do you feel now? I think it's 5 years later.
Yeah, we're in our 5th year. Gosh.
How do you feel now about the fact that that is still the ultimate goal, and everything always goes in peaks and troughs and difficulties and all that kind of thing? How do you feel now about that goal, that aspiration?
Still very positive that we can achieve that goal of ours. And I'm really proud of my cousins for really sticking it in and for doing their best to get us to this far.
Was it quite clear at the start that you were going to be the face of this movement?
No, not at all. And that wasn't agreed to.
That wasn't agreed to, did you say?
No, we would agree.
By who?
By our cousins, yeah. So we had our maituakana were, they speak on our behalf. And so they played that role for a while. And then they started to have children. And they started to establish their own businesses. And they started to go studies. And they had obligations to their own whānau that they needed to fulfill. And so over time, their role kind of changed and the taina became the spokesperson for the campaign because the taina had no responsibilities and obligations other than to herself and to her whānau.
Did you have a choice?
And the whenua. No, not really. It kind of just happened, and it happened very organically. It wasn't just like, okay, I can't do this anymore, so the next person in line is Pania. It was just like one day one of the cousins weren't there to speak to the media, and then, we needed to represent our whānau, and so, yeah.
What is that like for you, being the face of this movement?
It is tough.
Why?
Because I get a lot of criticisms, but it's also tough because I struggle with these concepts around tuakana and taina. Struggle with accusations that are made about me.
What accusations are made about you?
Oh, that I should go home and feed my children when I don't have any children, that I'm unemployed, accusations that I'm not mana whenua, accusations, all sorts, that I'm a wahine, so I don't have a place to speak about these sorts of kaupapa.
Who is making these accusations?
The general public, but as well as my own uncle.
When you first heard those accusations, especially from your uncle, what did you think?
Going into this kaupapa, I knew that these sorts of things come with the territory. And it wasn't hard to know that when you look at examples like what happened at Parihaka and at Te Kōpua, the Māori land march that Whina led, and also the mahi that Ngani Kōminhinik was involved with. So I knew that it came with the territory, and I knew quickly before we got too deep into this that we needed resilience and we needed courage and we needed to be bold in order to carry this whawhai.
How do you prepare for that? Because it's one thing knowing it's going to happen, right? And then when it happens, it can be quite a shock,
Yeah.
you know, and sometimes you just can't prepare for that moment when it comes. So how did you prepare yourself?
I read a lot about what Whina and Eva and our, Māori political giants went through, and I found courage and resilience in their whawhai, and knowing too that I was in a far more privileged position than they were. And I always acknowledge that I stand on the shoulders of those political giants, and that I am only a chain in this link of self-determination or liberation, because I've only inherited the whawhai from my tupuna, and my nieces and nephews will carry it after I'm gone. So knowing that, and knowing too that it's only a temporary thing. So I was happy to take the hits rather than my cousins who had businesses and who had families, because I knew I could carry that. Yeah.
What was the most challenging moment, the point at which potentially there are probably moments where you've had tears?
Oh, absolutely. Many.
What's the most challenging time where it's the head in hands kind of breakdown moment where you think, why am I doing this? How do I deal with this? Tell me about that most challenging time, if you can.
Probably the most challenging time was when I was criticised about not being mana whenua.
Okay, so let's clear that up.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think it's really important. And look, people have read stuff and still, despite the evidence and the statements, people still maintain this position. So let's clear that up now. When people say you are not mana whenua, how do you answer that?
Well, I say I'm tangata whenua first and foremost. And I say my whakapapa derives from my father, who is a 28th generation of hape, who was our rangatira. And for me, knowing that gives me courage to continue and gives me the resilience that I need. I try not to buy into all the criticisms, but sometimes I have, and they've resulted in many tears and many frustrations. But yeah, I say I know who I am. I might not represent mana whenua, but I am mana whenua, and I am haukainga.
Who do you turn to? What do you do when it comes to that tear-breaking moment, tear-jerking moment? What do you do to get yourself out of that position, knowing that you have a role to play where we like to see our leaders as strong and robust and stable and secure and that kind of thing? Who do you go to? What do you do to...
I always turn to my dad, because if my dad didn't guide me throughout this whole process or give me the blessing to be part of it, I wouldn't have come this far. And so in moments like those, my dad would comfort me and, solidify my connection to the whenua, because often then you'd start questioning yourself, like, if he's saying this, is this true? And then I'd go back to my papa and I'd go back to my uncles who were like, Kau, this is you, this is our whenua. You are part of the whenua and the whenua is part of you. And I didn't get so much upset that it was directed at me, but when you attack somebody's whakapapa, you attack somebody's whānau and their mokopuna. And so that's where it hurt me the most, was that I thought it was hurting my whānau, but in fact my whānau were stronger than I was. Yeah, my dad would be like, oh, don't worry about it, Papa, we know who we are. Yeah. Wow. And I guess he would always comfort me in saying, that's the only thing he has against you. Well, that speaks to his character.
Is it just him? When you talk about the he, you're talking about your uncle.
Yeah.
Is it just him, or is it the others as well that support that stance?
I think he's the one that's continuing this narrative. Okay. And because some people might consider him to be a leader, they would believe what he says.
Hard, because you can't choose your whānau.
No, not at all.
Okay, so...
So I just send him aroha. and I send him all my most positive whakaaro. And that's a way to help me deal with my frustrations and my anger.
There was a moment, and I'm trying to define exactly when this happens, and you'll be able to help answer me this, where the tide turns, where support grows. When did you first notice that sea change, where support outside of Tāmaki Makaurau as well?
I guess the support was always there. Me and my cousins wouldn't have continued on if we didn't have the support from our whānau and our marae. But I guess in terms of public support, that would have happened after our visit to the United Nations. I guess in many ways that kind of legitimised our kaupapa.
What do you make of the support that you get now? Particularly after that group of kaumātua go onto the land, they issue the notice, the eviction notice. People start arriving en masse.
Yeah.
To Ihumātao. What was your thinking at that time when the multitudes of people turn up to support this movement?
Well, knowing that our marae was very upset by what had happened, I've immediately felt sad for those kaumātua who did that, because had they listened to the people, they wouldn't have been in that very awkward position of having to evict kaitiaki from their whenua without the support of the people, because following on from that, we saw the masses arrive in support of the protection of the whenua.
And they're still arriving now.
Absolutely, we're having to turn people away because our kaupapa is not necessarily about managing people, it's about protecting the whenua. But when we do need to escalate, or when we do need the masses to return, we know they will come. And I guess for us too, one of the other turning points was when we occupied the whenua in November 2016. I think people then were like, wow, they're very serious. And then as the years went on, they knew we were going to stay there for as long as we could in order to see that that whenua was protected.
I use the term sea change specifically because sea change denotes the changes that actually might occur past Ihumātao.
Yeah.
In terms of treaty settlements themselves. Do you have a sense of the significance of what you're doing leading this movement, which actually could be the vanguard for a massive change in the way in which the Crown legislates, in which the Crown settles treaty grievances going forward now? Are you aware that that's what's going on? Are you aware that that's potentially a role you're fulfilling now?
No, not really. But what I do know is that if we take a view of our national landscape and looking at the issues that we're facing now around child theft, Māori and land rights, mental health, it shows that there's a broader systemic failure on the government to recognise and uphold fundamental Māori rights to self-determination. And this is something that is shared across many global Indigenous communities. And it begs us to ask the question, nā wai te he? And the connecting issue is these colonial government contexts. And so I'm seeing now that these are what is happening is at Ihumātao is having an impact on our global Indigenous communities. And whatever comes of this movement, I hope it's so long as it supports the movement to uphold Indigenous rights.
I've got a couple of questions left. Well, actually, I'm lying. I've probably got heaps, but they'll want me to close down soon. But do you think that the Crown is capable of moving itself outside of a box, essentially? It comes up with a process, says this is the way it's being done, and we're not going to think outside that. And the reason why I ask that is because you've already had some responses from representatives of the Crown, whether they see themselves as a part of that or not, but MPs, ministers, who are saying, we can't change because there are other impacts, and this is the way in which we do these things. Do you honestly think that there will be a resolution that fulfills your aspirations and the aspirations of Soul, and actually a number of other people who support Soul, and what's going on at Ihumātao, as well as being able to, I guess, to some certain extents, deliver what the Crown aspiration might be?
Yeah, I think the Crown has the ability to do as it pleases. The Crown overnight passed the law to designate Ihumātao a special housing area, so they can easily pass another law to disestablish the special housing area at Ihumātao and to return the land back to those whom the whenua was stolen from. That and the fact that they're able to change the gun laws overnight, the government can do as it pleases. For the government to say, oh, it's very tricky, we're going to open these floodgate issues around the treaty, settlements process and whatnot, is a cop-out. This isn't a treaty issue for us. This is a cultural heritage landscape issue, and it's an injustice issue. So the government needs to make right the wrong that they made in 1863 when they confiscated the land, and they need to make right the wrong that they made in 2014 when they designated Ihumātao a special housing area and then on-sold it to Fletcher's in 2016. And we need to see now in 2019 that that whenua is returned.
That's pretty clear. Okay.
Yeah.
The next question is this. Say this gets solved tomorrow, meets your aspiration, Crown's able to change. What do you do next?
Firstly, I retire and I take my little tiny home away for a little while and live on the road. But moving forward, I hope I can continue to be the best kaitiaki that I can be for our whenua and for our papakainga and for our marae and our people.
No aspiration to go back into law and potentially go back and be the judge?
I'm considering going to get admitted because I was supposed to be admitted to the bar many years ago, but I chose not to because I couldn't fathom taking the oath of allegiance to uphold the laws of New Zealand when those very laws are the laws that oppress our people. So when the kaupapa is over, I am considering taking up my admission to support Indigenous movements, to support the Māori rights to self-determination movements, and to support rangatiratanga. But that's not until further into the future, once I know our whenua is well taken care of, our marae is stable, and our people are comfortable and are thriving instead of surviving, and then maybe I'll consider doing something else.
Okay. I'm going to make a liar out of myself because I've got one.
Okay.
You received a phone call this morning, I think on your way here, that you said you're not actually that comfortable about, but let's talk this through. The phone call was from whom about what?
It was from News Hub Radio, asking me how I felt about being nominated for New Zealander of the Year award.
Did you know about it?
Not at all. So I was really surprised when I got that phone call, and I was thinking, who was the idiot that nominated me?
Could be one of thousands or tens of thousands, Pania, just quietly. How does it make you feel?
I don't know. I'm still processing that at the moment. Humbled, quite embarrassed because...
Why?
Only because I don't see myself as being a leader, and because
come on, we've been talking for an hour, and I think it's 7 minutes, 8 minutes now. This has all been about you in leadership. This is now your role, whether you like it or not.
But it's really awkward for me to consider myself as a leader because I consider everybody a leader, and I just think that I'm doing my part to contribute to the overall protection of our whenua. I'm only doing my part to contribute to a better Aotearoa. So I don't think that makes me a leader. I just think that makes me a very good contributor to the overall leadership of our people.
I understand what you're saying.
So yeah, I was really, going back to the first part, yes, I was very I felt very awkward getting that phone call, and because I felt a bit sad knowing too that it's sad how only one person gets recognised all the time, when I know there are thousands and thousands of people behind me who are doing just as much mahi as me, who are making just as much sacrifices as I am, who don't get recognised. And yeah, I actually got really tearful when I got that call this morning, because I just thought about all the other people who don't get the same recognition, and that makes me a little bit emotional. Yeah.
I think you're amazing. I don't think it matters if there are sides in this thing, what side you're on. I think what matters most is that you have to recognise leadership when you see it. Whether you like it or not, that is you. I'm not sure I'm going to come up with the best words to be able to conclude this interview other than to say I'm very thankful that you've given us your time, and that we've taken you away from your wharepaku duties.
Yeah, they'll be waiting for me when I get back there. I just know it.
But this is not an easy thing that you're going through, and to be able to front up and talk to us and share your experiences, your life with us, I can only wish you all the best, and to thank you from my heart for giving us your time. We wish you all the best, and I think just quietly you might be New Zealander at the airport. So just to conclude finally, thank you again. You're going back to the pā now to what, dry dishes or?
Yeah, pretty much. I've got to finish those wharepaku duties and then I'll move on to the kitchen. But any way that I can contribute to the operations of the reclamation, I'm there. But I just want to say thank you for allowing me to have this space and for allowing me to share my story, in the hope that it might inspire somebody else to make a difference in their own community that would contribute hopefully to a better Aotearoa and a better globe.